Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and I'm so excited to bring you another episode with my co-host, Carrie Bennett. We are really enjoying giving you this show and talking about these topics that seem really complex so that we can help them be a little bit more understandable to the everyday person. I just wanted to remind you to head down into the show notes to make sure you get my free resources and Carrie's free resources. We've both spent a lot of time compiling our favorite list of products, as well as how you can actually implement a lot of these things into your daily life for free using our guides. We also both have amazing courses that you have access to in the show notes as well. And we co-host a course together called Quantum Fertility. We've actually had some quantum fertility babies just born this summer, and we have several quantum fertility pregnancies going on right now where women were told that they were not going to get pregnant, and we have been able to show them the way using these circadian principles and quantum biology, and we're so grateful for this. So make sure you head down to the show notes, check out those resources, check out those courses. And if you are enjoying the show, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, leave us a comment. And if you're listening on the podcast app, please head on over to Apple or Spotify, leave us up to a 5-star review. Since we are such a brand new show, we want to make sure that we're getting this message out to as many people as possible. Again, we want to make these concepts of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable and applicable to the everyday person. We want you to pull up a chair, come hang out, and enjoy this conversation with me and Carrie, and have a fantastic day. Hello, welcome to Quantum Conversations. Carrie and I are so excited to have you back. Today, we are going to talk about a question we get all the time, and that is family members, kids, husbands. How do we kind of live this lifestyle and have families, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because this stuff is still considered weird and out there, a lot of it. And so it's not unusual at all to have family members kind of look at you like, have you gone off the deep end? Right. And so we've been there, and we want to walk you through kind of like how to navigate that and things that we know. Like I can tell you several things too about like how not to force family members into this as well. And just you do you. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, I feel like my biggest thing is you have to lead by example. That's where I had to get to with my family. I don't know if yours was like that too, because you have a husband, you have 2 sons and a daughter. So I feel like the men are a little bit harder to convince. So you have 3 men in your house. But that's usually my first piece of advice to people is like, do it yourself and don't freak out about all the lights on at night. Wear your blue blockers, try to sequester some time and space where you can be in your own little space and environment. But I don't know how you dealt with that with your family.
Well, first and foremost, like, I came across Dr. Cruz's work, and then all of the people he was talked about, Alexander Wunsch, Mae Van Hoen, James Oschman, all these people. I came across that work probably about almost 10 years ago. Right. And so it was like when I started wearing blue blockers, I started wearing clear ones. Like I don't even know what
me too. I didn't know why those were not okay. Right. So for anyone listening, they don't actually block out the right amount of blue light that we need blocked out for it to be beneficial for melatonin production, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And that's why you hear a lot of the news headlines. And Dr. Huberman even said this on his podcast, and I think he's shifting his perspective now.
Yeah.
But even he said, well, the research shows that these don't do anything. But when you look at the actual glasses, the blue blocking glasses that they were using, it was the clear lens technology, which oftentimes just looks like a blue sheen, if you will. If you look at it in the right light, right, it looks like a blue sheen over the lens. And when you actually measure what that blocks with a spectrometer, you realize it blocks a small percentage of 1 or 2 or maybe 5 wavelengths of 100 wavelengths, right, that need to get blocked. So you're blocking such a tiny, tiny portion of blue light that it does, of course, it's going to do next to nothing,
right?
Because the receptors in our eyes that sense blue light are receptive to a whole range of the blue frequencies, including into the green spectrum even.
Exactly. I was going to say green too. Yep.
So yeah, it makes it's obvious why the clear ones didn't make any sense. But, I didn't know it at the time. Yeah. You didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But when I started transitioning to the orange lenses, that actually made a difference for me. That's where it was just like, what are you doing? Right?
Yeah, I know. My husband too. He's like, what is up with these glasses you're wearing? Like, I don't get this, and then I started changing the light bulbs and he got really mad about that.
No. Yeah. And so here's hint on step one, you protect your eyes first.
Yeah.
Because you protect your eyes with the orange tone glasses. Then you go, that does a lot in terms of protecting those receptors in your eyes from sensing blue light, a lot. And then then my next thing in the house was, can we just turn lights off, especially overhead lighting?
Yes.
Because I don't know about you, but that overhead lighting to me, because biologically I'm designed to only see overhead lighting right over when the sun's
in the middle of the day.
Exactly. Yep. And so even without changing any bulbs or anything, it was just like, can we use this table lamp, or can we turn all the overhead lights off? Can we turn lights off and just make it dimmer in general? And then once I knew which how we could kind of navigate through the house, which lights in the kitchen we would want on, like we had a tiny little one that goes over our sink, or which lamps we would be using. That's when I was like, I'm changing these bulbs out now, and I'm not telling anybody. Right?
Yep, exactly.
And so, that was the smoothest transition, as opposed to put on your blue blockers, right?
Exactly.
Or, turn every light off, or, we have to have red bulbs only.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And that's I think a lot of people, they'll take my courses or maybe even yours too. And they think I have to do this all at once. It has to be perfect or it's not going to make a difference. And I so often have to say in my private community, please do not let perfect be the enemy of good. You make these little small changes, you're going to feel a difference. You're going to see a difference. And if you just make the change in yourself first, it's going to help. You can't fix everything all in one day. And so simple rules. If you're up before the sun rises, put on your blue blockers, right? Preferably orange tone. If you're walking around the house, you probably don't want to wear red because you'll bump into stuff, could get hurt. And then after sunset, same thing, put on orange tone. And sometimes I'll even wear yellow, the raw optics yellow, because the raw optics yellow, they block out more of the blue and green than the Viva rays do on purpose. So I'll wear those sometimes if, the sunset's really early in the winter, and then I might switch to orange around 7:00, and then I'll switch to red around 8, I'm just switching out. Yeah. I just switch out, which is, you don't have to do that, but I'm just saying for simple blue blockers before sunrise, blue blockers after sunset. And maybe that's all that you do in the first, and no overhead lights on, right?
Yeah. And also this is just another family thing that discussion there just reminded me of. And it's there's sports practices that I go to with my kids in the middle of winter, where you're in a fluorescent lit gymnastics studio or gymnasium. And my kids have very kindly told me that I'm not welcome with orange tone lenses. And so you're exactly right. I wear the deeper yellow tone lenses with a hat on, just a baseball cap. And I find that has a decently protecting effect on my circadian rhythm, to the extent that when I get outside, because I'm only going to drive with the yellow lenses anyways, at night, I'm never going to drive with oranges or reds. That when I'm outside and I'm driving home with the yellows and I've got the natural darkness of winter surrounding me, I feel my melatonin start to recover really, really quickly. Yeah. And so that's another hack too, right? ideally I would never have to do that, right? If I was just focusing on my circadian rhythm, but I've got a family and I want my kids to participate in these activities that they love. And I enjoy watching them, participate in these activities that they love as well. And so, like you said, perfection is the enemy of all of this stuff, right? You can do things well enough, and it's the consistency that matters. Your body's not stupid, right? You're not, it's going to sync right back up. That's just a small blip in time where there's a little bit of confusion, but it's going to sync right back up as soon as you get to a more ideal circadian environment.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what people need to understand. And, so the question I think a lot of people will have is like, what about your kids? They're doing the sports under these bright fluorescent lights at night, and maybe they're wearing tank tops, or, how do you manage them in this process?
Kids are a lot more resilient, I think, than grownups. And I do feel like it crosses my mind, right? In terms of like, 8 o'clock at night, December, fluorescent lit basketball practice, not ideal.
Right.
But what we do then is we just, thankfully, so my kids now have gotten to the point where when they get home and it's a certain time of night, they want their orange tone blue blockers. It's not and my husband too, right? It's not a chore. And I never used it as a chore. I just, like you said, imitated the behavior that I thought was healthy. And now they're starting to want it as well, because they recognize that watching, football at 8 o'clock, at 8:30 at night in the middle of winter isn't necessarily supportive of with a bright TV screen shining in their face. It just viscerally doesn't feel good to them anymore. Yeah. And so I do feel like we're at this point where we do the best we can. Yeah. We'll make the house dim after a bright practice like that. We'll make the house dim. They'll put on their orange tone blue blockers. And so we'll recover as much melatonin as we can. And then when we're driving into school, I, have my windows down at some point in the middle of the drive, and I say sunrise eyes, right? And they look to the brightest part of the sky. Or we're outside on the weekends or in the afternoons, or we'll have a campfire. We'll be outside all year round as well, to try to just allow the brain to sync up to the natural frequencies whenever possible. And so, kids do okay. Like, if this was someone who was coming to me with maybe a really advanced cancer, I would potentially have different advice, but kids recover really, really quickly.
Yeah. So with your kids at school too, that's another question I got from a group member this week. She's like, should I pull my kids out of school and homeschool them? They have to go. There's a lot you got to consider in terms of homeschool beyond circadian stuff. I mean, yeah, that's what her question was. She's just like, they have windows that don't open. They only go outside once a day. Like, is it really, really bad for them to be in this environment? Should I pull them out and homeschool them? And I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily do that unless you really want to. I'm not against homeschooling if you want to homeschool, but yeah.
I've got, some families that I know pretty closely do homeschool their children, and it's beautiful, right? Because they've gotten into this circadian lifestyle, and they wake up and they go outside first thing and go on a family walk, and they spend some morning light. They capture that morning light, and then the kids go in and they do their schoolwork, and then they go back outside. A lot more time spent outside by far, and it's absolutely beautiful. When we're at a traditional school, that lighting is fluorescent garbage. Absolutely. That the non-native EMFs, because now everything is there's Wi-Fi everywhere. Every kid has a tablet or a laptop or something. It is a substantial challenge, I think, these days that we're putting on our kids with it. But I just know personally, my children would not want to be homeschooled by me. Yeah. Right. Like it would break their hearts, because they've gotten into this routine. They love their classmates. They love their school. That emotional trauma would have been worse, I think, than what's happening with the fluorescent lights. Now, my kids are at a school where the teachers, because of COVID, actually want to open windows and recognize that kids do better with open windows. And there's no air conditioning, so the windows have to be open at the majority of the year, because of the fact that, you have to let the fresh air in, or it gets hot as heck in there. So it's maybe a slightly different environment. It's a case by case basis, but like you have to, there's a lot of things to assess. There's no right or wrong. I've got, if I had a kid, maybe that had a mitochondrial dysfunction or started to show mitochondrial dysfunction, severe anxiety, severe depression, which is that's what oftentimes picks up very quickly in kids. Just a general fatigue that I see quite a bit that's happening as well. Those are the types of things where you have to ask yourself, maybe this is someone who would do better in an environment where we can get them more natural light exposure and really be more in control of those environmental exposures that can be harmful.
Yeah. And, you can do things for your kids when they get home, obviously outside, grounded, bare feet
outside. Yep.
I was even telling one of my group members, maybe see if they'll drink a little bit of hydrogen water, get some nice spring water, minerals, give them a hydrogen tablet when they get home, see if they will drink that. And I think that could help to offset some of that stress from being in that environment with blue light all day and no windows and not being outdoors. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I do. I send my kids. So you and I have the Spring Aqua water system, and it dissolves the hydrogen into the water without tasting like the dissolved hydrogen you get from a tablet, which has a more metallic-y taste to it because it's a metallic magnesium that needs to dissolve to create that hydrogen gas. So with the Spring Aqua system, it has a handle that we can just use. We can pour water. That we can just pour water that's molecular hydrogen. And so that's the one I always send my kids to school with, is just their big old water bottle full of hydrogen rich water, because I know what they're dealing with the wireless radiation and the blue light for sure.
Yeah.
But, again, like you said, how do you mitigate? Well, we get the light exposure before we go into school. We get the light exposure on the car ride home. We go outside in the afternoon. We touch our bare feet to the earth. All these things can just help to allow a body to both mitigate the damage and maintain circadian rhythmicity.
Exactly. And at night, how do you handle your kids? Like you said, they're a little bit more resilient, but they want to wear their blue blockers. How the heck did you get them to that place? Because that's a question I get from a lot of people, is like, how do you get your kids or teenagers? I know you don't have teenagers yet.
Darn close. And actually my 7-year-old, she feels quite like a teenager. But you're right. I lived it, and I don't know. I do feel like there is this resonance that happens, right? And my husband started to notice it first in terms of I was putting these on. I feel like I'm thriving. I feel super healthy. I feel great. I got energy when I need to. And so I don't know if something clicked in his brain first of let me put the orange tones on. And then when he started wearing those regularly, there comes a certain time of night where he, for sure, if he's watching TV or looking at his phone, wants to have them on. Like it's no chore whatsoever. He seeks them out. And then because he and my son really bonded over watching things like football, in the evening, if you will, then my oldest, my 12-year-old, really also started recognizing, wow, yeah, he tried them out and he feels better with them. So again, it's not a chore for him either.
Right.
It was just a gradual thing. And so the other thing too is I have had clients really figure out ways to change the screens that they're looking at. So one really fascinating thing that one of my clients did was she figured out how to basically cast what her computer screen was playing onto her TV. And I'm not tech savvy. I'm certain there's some cords attached. And so on her computer screen, she had Iris Tech software.
Yeah.
Right. And so she was able to mitigate the blue and really, really reduce it enough so that family would still watch it, not complete red, complete red, but that typically doesn't go well with the family. But enough where it really made a difference in terms of mitigating the light coming from it and then watching that at night, as opposed to those screens from I don't know, my biggest nightmare is going to a hotel for several reasons, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's brighter than all heck, the non-native buffs are. And then if you've ever tried to watch TV at a hotel, I swear they up the brightness on those things.
So bright.
10. It's insane. And I'm always to my kids, I'm always let me find the settings first. I try to turn the back, if I can, the backlight, I turn it way down. I increase the red tint. I know the hotels hate me because I'm always modifying the setting, but TVs are bright these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah. I remember the last time I stayed in a hotel and I bet we were talking about HRV a little bit before this. And I've been playing with the Aura Ring, keeping on airplane mode. Of course, if you're going to wear one of these, airplane mode, and don't use an Apple Watch, don't use a Fitbit. Those are going to still give you non-native EMF, but these are okay on airplane mode, not perfect. But my HRV was a 13 the last time I stayed in a hotel. And I'm like,
I know why. We know why.
Because you open your phone and it's like Wi-Fi. It's like everywhere. You're surrounded by it. There's blue light that even though you bring your electrical tape and try to, stomp it out, it's still
got towels under the door so the hall light doesn't go.
I had this alarm clock that I swear was like glued into the wall that I couldn't unplug. So I had to like cover with a bunch of towels. I'm like,
but one just won't do. One towel won't do.
No,
you
need
legitimately
like 3 or 4.
Yeah, exactly. That light's so bright. It's insane. Or thermostats. I've seen the thermostats that are like, and I'm like, how do I fit this towel? Like,
Exactly. Yeah. We have thermostats in our bedroom. We have a really huge bedroom. So they're not like right next to us or anything, but I actually took blackout curtains and like cut them in the shape of the thermostat and use electrical tape. So they're like
perfect.
Like I can't do this. Yeah. So, I mean, a little tangent there, but I feel like that's one of the things that people just really worry about with their kids is like, how the heck do I get them to be compliant with these things? And I think you're right. It's a resonance thing. They kind of see us doing it. That's why I'm like, with everybody, do this yourself. They're going to notice a difference with you, with your energy, your mood, all that stuff. And they're going to want to do it. Because my husband was the same way. It took him 2 years to get to the point where he wanted to try some blue blockers. He's like, okay, can you order me some of those glasses? And I was like, sure. And I think Rudy had reached out from Viva Rays, was like, I have these new ones. You want to try them out? And I'm like, let's get them for my husband. And so, yeah, he was the same way. Like he finally got to the point where he wanted to wear them. So I'm like, okay, cool. And we don't really watch a ton of TV at our house either. But if he does football, then yeah, you can wear the blue blockers. So
yeah, it has made a difference. And it's just cool to have the experience of seeing a husband and kids go from really not noticing the visceral brightness. Like for me, when I do get a visceral reaction.
Me too.
If I don't protect my eyes. And so now it's almost like they're tuning their antenna to what is healing and healthy. It's just a cool transition to see because now they do recognize that it's too bright. Like they don't want that. So, but it's time, it's patience. My family was 2 years, maybe longer, actually. I mean, maybe 5 years. But yeah, it's a process, and that doesn't, just because they don't do it doesn't mean that you can't do it.
Right. Exactly.
The benefit.
Yeah.
The other one that I think that I'm certain, Sarah, you get questions about in your on your Instagram post and in your community is, what about the Wi-Fi router?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that can be a tough one. And I feel like husbands fight over that more than anything. Like they get mad. Because my husband was really mad about it for a long time. And like, I'm turning off the Wi-Fi at night. Like I have a remote beside the bed, flips it off. And he would get really pissed. And, that's just one of those things like, sorry, that's what we do, Yeah. How about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was a weird one as well, because with us, I think we have certain things that hook back into the Wi-Fi that, like, once it's unplugged, you need to reconnect to this setting or whatever. Like there's reconnection that's annoying, like on his work computer. And
that's how my husband's is too. That's why he was getting so irritated, is like, I have to reconnect my work computer and And it's, I think that was the main issue that he had with it.
Exactly. Right. Well, and then at some point I just feel like he got over it. He recognized it's an extra minute of reconnect, let it go through. It's like, I don't know what it does. Maybe it connects to make sure this is a safe source of Wi-Fi or whatever. Yeah. And once it was just like, okay, we got over the need to like have to wait 2 minutes, right? Every time that, okay. So now he will. I've tried a couple of things, right? I tried the clicker we lose things, right? We lose things in our house.
I get it.
Right. So we tried the clicker, which is it's a great option if it works, right? If you don't lose things, we lose stuff. I tried a timer as well,
Yeah, we've got some of those.
Does work, but there is a rare instance where you need Wi-Fi a little later than your timer or a little earlier than your timer. And then it was just kind of like, oh, wait, let me. So once it became the last person up at night unplugs it, and then we just first person up plugs it in or whenever you need it, right? It's easy. That's how we do it. And it just works for us.
Yeah, that's smart. Because sometimes that clicker would malfunction and I'd be in the middle of a work day and need to get on Zoom and it was off. Yeah. And I couldn't get on Zoom. And so the clicker can be hit or miss sometimes. Like usually it would work great, but every now and then it causes an issue. So that's also a great solution of just last person up, unplug the Wi-Fi, just do it.
And for those of you, because I can picture a couple of people whose significant others are completely resistant to it at this point. What I say is, if you can relocate that Wi-Fi router as far away from your bedroom as possible, that's gonna be supportive, right? We're talking steps here. I mean, I have had clients who had the Wi-Fi router either in their bedroom, them,
that's the worst,
or like office, not in the next room, sharing a wall. And it made a big difference to relocate that, even though they're not necessarily turning it off at night. So
yeah, ours is like it's in the basement, basically.
Yeah, ours is far, far away from where I'm
all the bedrooms.
Right.
We're like 2 floors up from the Wi-Fi at our house, which is great.
Yeah.
But we still unplug it because I think that's just the healthiest thing to do for the kids and yourself.
The wildlife at night, like everything, right? Every creature that actually needs to recognize Earth's natural fields.
Exactly.
The other thing too, that I think is a low-hanging fruit that maybe won't give too much resistance, that we have talked about before, is just a reminder to unplug things.
In your room. Yep.
In your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your workspace. Try not to be within, I think a really good rule of thumb is try not to be sitting regularly within 6 feet of anything that's plugged in.
Exactly.
So especially sleeping, right? Which means
sleeping is the most important.
Also too, I have had clients with sleeping. I have had them move their bed so that it's not near an outlet, even with nothing plugged in. And that has made a difference as well.
Yeah. And, you have to think about what's on the other side of the wall, because my son's room, there's a washer dryer on the other side of the wall. So I was like, well, I can't put the crib up against that wall. The crib has to go the other wall. Because if we're running washer dryer, because we go through a lot of laundry at our house and he'll probably be sleeping when we're doing that. So that was something that I knew we needed to do. So that's another thing, is like, where's your bed in relation to these devices? Because it will, when Shane from Optimal Dwelling came to my house and showed me a lot of the stuff, like I didn't even know the Bluetooth was on my computer. Because he's like, your computer's unplugged and it's hardwired. Why is it still giving off all this non-native EMF? And the Bluetooth was on my computer. So he turned it off. And then it was like, oh, then the meter calmed down. So all these little things we don't realize are kind of going on can really, really, really emit a lot of non-native EMF in the family environment. And then again, like if you have a noise machine in the bedroom for your kid, make sure it's 6 feet away from the bed.
Hardwired, please.
And don't have a wireless noise machine. And then there's like some of them, Shane was showing me, like the Dome, DOHM, those have like actually like a motor that spins. And those are really, really high in non-native EMF. He's like, if you can just get a digital one that has the sounds uploaded into it, those are better. So I had one of those in the baby's room, the digital one. And he's like, oh yeah, that's fine. And he measured it, made sure it was across the room. And he's like, yeah. So we've got an air doctor and a noise machine in the baby's room. And we just make sure that they're 6 feet away from the bed, so that he's not picking that up when he's sleeping.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I think if also something that I think is an important discussion with this whole household and family dynamic is the cost of some of the mitigation strategies, or maybe even some of the support strategies, like a red light therapy panel or water filtration.
Yes.
And so maybe we can give like the free and easy, or the cheap and easy first, because I got into all of this, the cheap and easy route, right? Like I bought the cheapest but best quality water filter pitcher I could possibly get, right? Like I got a heat bulb as opposed to a sauna first. Like I got into it that way. And I think that was the best way to really kind of test things out, but also then just slowly, everyone's, well, I'm going to upgrade this, I'm going to upgrade that. So let's start with water. Like, what would be the hierarchy there?
I would do an AquaTrue, just a countertop, if you want it, like a countertop pitcher. If you're budget conscious, those are a few $100s, I think. And I would do that, add some minerals back in. I like Quinton Hypertonic, but you could also do, I know you like the Ocean Blue, Omni Ocean Blue.
I am a huge fan of Soleil these days.
And you've been making
amazing results with Soleil.
You've been making a lot of Soleil water, which is very inexpensive. And it's SOLE, Soleil water. But yeah, you can just get an AquaTrue countertop, add some minerals back into it. That's going to be huge. And then if you want to buy those hydrogen tablets and pop a hydrogen tablet in there, that also helps mitigate the effects of non-native EMF. There have been some studies on that. So I would do that for water. Unplugging the Wi-Fi, obviously, we already talked about that. Instead of needing to buy anything, just unplug it at night. Lamps, and stop turning on the overhead lights, and then get a bulb that is, you don't necessarily even have to go red. You can do red, but they have, I think Huga is one that I've used, that I have, that's blue light blocking, and it's like 1600 kelvins, which is the same intensity as sunset and sunrise. So we'll use those with lamps. Do you have some bulbs that you like, Carrie?
Yeah. So, I mean, let me go back to the water really quickly on that one. And I think we have our product guides, like Sarah and I have complete product guides. So if you're wanting to catch what we're doing, we'll make sure they're linked in the description here, because we give these recommendations and some others as well with discount codes if you're interested. But my entry was the pitcher from the Wellness Enterprise, the best water pitcher ever, which filtered out, I needed something that filtered out as best as possible, even fluoride. And so that was my entry point into filtration. So there is a pitcher even, right? If that's where you're starting, there's a pitcher, and that pitcher is probably $75. So it's not
that's great.
The cheapest pitcher on the market, but it did the trick.
It does the job. Yeah.
Right. It did the trick.
Less than the AquaTrue.
Yeah, exactly. I also like Gary Greenfield's countertop water filters. They're like gravity fed filters from Greenfield Water Solutions. They're good ones as well, because he does a beautiful job with how he goes through the filtration process. And then those ones do retain some of the beneficial minerals, but like you said, remineralizing it and Google Soleil water and how to make it. And I typically use the gray Celtic salt to make my Soleil.
Favorite. Yeah.
Great salt. And then you can continue to upgrade, and you'll see in our product recommendations guide, there's definitely upgrades to that. But if that's where you stay, that's great. That's great. Don't pressure yourself or anything. That's great. With the bulbs, it's still available where I live. It's a loophole.
Edison style
incandescence.
Yeah.
I just have found nothing. And I want people to be subjective about this too, because someone just can't just tell you, oh, this is the best bulb. But it's like, I've had clients who are like, well, people tell me I need a red LED, and they put red LEDs in their house, and it makes them feel angry and intense. And so for some clients, I have found that red increases the sympathetic nervous system.
Interesting.
I have found, right. So they'll get a cortisol surge. It associates with anger, right? And intensity. And so just because someone says a bulb is circadian healthy, you buy one, don't buy 20, buy one bulb and test it out. And I've tested, at least 50 different bulbs, and have always come back to Edison style incandescent bulbs that are, like you said, color, very similar color temperature, 16 to 1800 Kelvin. They're amber tone. They got an amber glow to them. And we put them in lamps that have, that actually are, it's like a wraparound glass, almost like a, what would you call it? What would you call it?
Stained glass?
Like a stained glass. Yeah.
Yep.
So it just feels like just a warm glow.
Yeah.
I also have had clients utilize the salt lamps, right? You know, because those come with tiny incandescent bulbs as well and have a warm glow. Those just resonate with me so deeply in terms of still being able to see what's going on in my space, but it just feeling very, very soothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like those a lot too. Yeah. I feel like you do have to test out to see, because everyone wants the perfect light bulb for them. And I'm like, yeah, test it and see how it makes you feel. Because like you said, the red might not really resonate with you for whatever reason. And my husband would be pissed if I put red bulbs in. Now, Dr. Sarah Pio has been talking a lot about using UV bulbs.
I've heard her with that. We chatted briefly.
Yeah. She's been talking about that a lot. What do you think about UV bulbs?
Well, you know, I think it's fascinating, right? And we're talking about black light, right? The UV black light bulbs. And remember, UV is technically not a wavelength that we're going to see, right? It's outside of the visible spectrum. But if I don't know, I mean, my experience with those wave bulbs were probably from like a college party, you know, when you had to, what did you like?
I used to have one in my bedroom. So yeah,
right. Exactly. And so it does, it'll illuminate the space, but in a softer way for sure. And I think it's a fascinating thing to play around with, because my only experience is the anecdotal evidence from John Ott's book. He wrote Health and Light, and he interviewed this hotel that used black lights as part of just their decor because it made their menu pop out. And so just having a conversation with the hotel manager, the restaurant manager and staff, he basically asked them, so how is it? Like, I bet you it's tough retaining workers here at this restaurant. And I bet you get a lot of turnover. And he said, the manager said, no, we've had the same staff for decades. They rarely call in sick. They love being here. They all talk about what a good, happy atmosphere it feels like. And that's where you recognize that UVA light is what we even talk about that stimulates things like serotonin and dopamine. And so I think that there's something to it for sure. And it's just not something I've played around with.
Yeah, I haven't either. And I know that would look really funky in the house at night too.
Yeah. Do you know, a lot of the other thing too is like a lot of people, and I am a believer too, I just feel like a warm tone, like a campfire, is really what we were designed to be around.
Yeah, I think
as
so too.
Light at night. And so that's what really for me just feels like, yes, that's just very soothing.
And you're going to wear blue blockers with the bulbs anyway, hopefully. Anyways. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I recommend. Don't overcomplicate it.
Don't overthink it. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't overthink it. Don't overcomplicate it. So we've got water. And then we didn't even mention you can get an analemma wand to structure that water if you want to as well. Yep. Stir it up. Bulbs, unplug the Wi-Fi. What are we missing here?
Well, we're going to do a whole podcast, I think, on red light therapy. Yes. And so we'll save those kind of like recommendations for that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, keep it simple, right? Start simple and don't beat yourself up if you don't feel like you're doing it perfectly. Right. I'm still not doing it perfectly. And it's been about a 10-year process. And I tell people this in my group all the time as well. It's like, I've written down, like one time I just sat down and wrote down all the changes I've made for the past 10 years that I thought were beneficial to my health. And my list was 200 items long.
Wow.
If I were to give that 200 item list to someone, a client would be like,
so
do
overwhelmed.
this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a recipe for failure. Absolute failure that I would never think about doing that. So just make note, every little thing you do just has this cumulative effect over time. And eventually you'll get to that threshold of, wow, look at all these things I've done that just feel so supportive, but don't push yourself to doing it perfectly right off the bat.
Exactly. That's exactly right on. It's just don't try to do everything all at once. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Know that your kids are resilient. You know, if there is some sort of a mitochondrial issue going on, depression, anxiety, then maybe I would consider trying to make some accommodations for them. But overall, if they're healthy, they're happy, they love their school, you know, and maybe see how they do, and try to do everything you can quantumly at home to support them. And I think that's the best that you can do, right? And don't beat yourself up for not being perfect, because this stress that I think people go through once they understand this information, and once they understand light, people can freak out and think like, oh my gosh, my husband turned on an overhead light at 10 o'clock at night. And then I flipped it back off. Did he just ruin everything for me? No, your brain is not stupid. A flash of light for a few seconds at 10 o'clock at night is not going to kill your melatonin production for that night. Like it's a little flash, but you go back to darkness, you're okay. It's not going to ruin everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel like that perfectionist mentality is oftentimes more toxic than and any of the quote unquote bad lighting or things that or non-native EMFs that we've been discussing as well, because it just overloads your mitochondria and your nervous system with stress. Exactly. And that has a really far-reaching effect in terms of suppressing energy production and just putting you in this heightened state of anxiety. So just no need to be perfect.
Exactly. And there's other things you can do, like harmonizing your home. I know you've been really into biogeometry.
I love biogeometry. I love the cosmic tower. I love a lot of different things about that. Yeah. So
I've got a cosmic tower too now, thanks to you. we've got Leela Q's, we've got a cosmic tower.
Great company.
Yeah. So there's things you can do to harmonize as well. And it's not just woo woo. I mean, I think it's really legit. You just have to be careful with some of these companies. Like, you have to know like that they're actually legit. They're not ripping you off, because there are a lot of crazy rip-off companies in the industry. Putting a sticker on your phone is not going to do anything. So don't buy those. Don't do that. Just try to keep your cell phone away from you.
But also don't fall into the mindset, which I did, of all harmonizing is BS.
Right.
Because I can't pick up the effect of the harmonization on my EMF meter, right? Like just because you're not seeing a reduction in your EMF meter doesn't mean it's not actually it's not transforming the wave form to actually be one that's not biologically damaging. I went down that rabbit hole, and I was enlightened by everything that I've known, and actually it's been known since antiquity, frankly, about how we can harmonize the energy in our space.
Yeah, that's important, because a lot of us can't, with families, with kids, we can't move out to the country and move off the grid as much as we may want to. It's just not going to be realistic when you've got 3 kids in school. I've got a kid that needs a lot of support with different therapies and things like that. And we rely on community support, and we need community support. So it's not like we could just move off grid. Yeah, it sounds great and awesome, but how realistic is it? And then even if you move off grid, like you and I have been talking about, you can't control when they're going to throw up a tower. You can't control satellites. Like a lot of this stuff, we can't escape from it. And so freaking out about it, trying to be perfect and running around with your EMF meter all the time, like, worrying all the time, is not productive for you or for your family, not good for your health or their health. And so we have to, I think, learn how to have a certain attitude about this stuff so that it is health promoting, right?
Yeah, that's what I call it. I just say it's like resiliency in all the different ways. Like, how am I building resiliency? Well, there's mindset. And then there's other things I can do. Like, I can cold plunge to become more resilient. I can sauna to become more resilient. I can get into nature to become more I can build resiliency in a lot of different ways. And so you're exactly right. I think the tendency from just my personal experience with this, but also seeing people get the glimmer of quantum health and quantum biology, and then diving into it. And then it's like they get into that, like, once you understand, like you said, you kind of go all in. And that's where it's really easy to get caught up in the almost like becoming obsessive to a fault about everything. So we're just hoping to catch you if you're in that time of your learning journey here, and or if you haven't gotten there, or if you can kind of see your body heading in that direction, try to steer clear of that if at all possible. It doesn't have to be perfect to be effective.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Do you have anything else to add, Carrie?
No. Also though, last thing. Family members don't necessarily want unsolicited advice about their lifestyles. So keep it to yourself and wait for them to ask you and approach you.
Agreed. 100%. Yes. Awesome. I love it. It's a great place to end things. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for watching and listening.